Elva Craddock saw the boy at the Cedar Bend Mercantile at 3:15 on a Thursday afternoon in March, and knew what was wrong with him inside of a minute. She was standing at the yard goods counter, waiting for Mrs. Waite to cut her 2 yards of blue calico for a Sunday dress for her aunt. She turned her head at a sound she had heard before, the small, dry, unproductive cough of a child slowly being poisoned. She looked toward the front counter. The boy was 5, thin, pale to the point of gray at the temples, standing beside his father, with his small hand tucked in his father's rough one. He was not crying, he was not fussing, he was doing nothing at all. That was the worst of it. His father was buying flour and salt and a paper twist of penny candy, and asking Mr. Waite in the low voice of a man who did not want to shame his own child whether Doc Farrow was in town that afternoon. And Mr. Waite was answering that the doctor was over at the Vaughn place. No, at the Purnell place. No, he did not rightly know where the doctor was. Elva watched the boy. He put his hand up to his mouth. He gave a small, dry cough. His father tightened his grip on the small hand. Elva saw the boy's lower lip. The gums above his lower front teeth were faintly blue. She had seen that blue line once before, in a Missouri lead mining town called Bonatera, in the winter of 1884, on the child of a family her late husband Silas had treated. She said, quietly, to Mrs. Waite at the yard goods counter, "Mrs. Waite, who is that gentleman and his boy at the front counter?" Mrs. Waite lifted her eyes from the cloth. "That is Mr. Nathan Vaughn of the Vaughn place, 6 miles west. His wife Rachel died 5 years ago in childbirth with that boy. Wesley. Wesley has been failing 4 months, and Doc Farrow does not know why. He is the 3rd doctor who has not known why. Nathan is worn to the bone. The boy will not eat. Poor father." Elva Craddock said, "Thank you." She paid Mrs. Waite for the cloth. She folded the paper. She stepped outside onto the porch. Nathan Vaughn came out of the mercantile with the sack of flour on his shoulder and the boy at his hand a moment later. He set the flour in the buckboard bed. He lifted the boy up to the driver's board. He tipped his hat to Elva without seeing her, because he was thinking about the boy. Elva stepped forward and said, "Mr. Vaughn." He turned. He said, "Ma'am, do I know you?" Elva said, "My name is Elva Craddock. My aunt is Miss Luella Craddock, the schoolmistress. I am staying with her. I was the wife of Dr. Silas Craddock of Springfield, Missouri, before he died 2 years back. I am a licensed midwife and a general nurse of 11 years' practice. I would ask you, Mr. Vaughn, to please forgive me for speaking to you on the street. I saw your son inside the mercantile. I have seen once before what I believe I have just seen. Would you permit me, please, to look at him at your ranch this afternoon? If I am wrong, I have wasted an hour of your day and I will apologize. If I am right, we may know at last what is wrong with him." Nathan Vaughn looked at Elva Craddock. He said, in a voice careful with a great deal of worn hope, "Ma'am, what have you seen?" Elva said, "I would rather examine him first than name it aloud on a porch. I would tell you at your kitchen table with him beside us. Would you come?" Nathan Vaughn said, "Ma'am, please come." Elva sat at Nathan Vaughn's kitchen table an hour later with Wesley on her lap. She examined him gently. She looked at his gums. She listened to his breathing. She pressed her ear lightly to the small of his stomach. She lifted his lower eyelid. She looked at his fingernails. She asked him to squeeze her fingers. She asked him what his favorite color was, to see how quickly he answered. He said, slowly, "Blue." She asked him to name 3 things he saw in the kitchen. He named the stove and the coffee pot, and did not name the 3rd. She set him down. She sat him in the chair beside her. She said, without dropping her voice, because she had learned in 11 years to speak plainly in front of the patient, "Wesley, will you show me the pump outside where you drink water?" Wesley looked at his father. Nathan nodded. They went to the pump. It was an old cast-iron pump at the corner of the porch. The handle was worn shiny by 4 years of ranch hand use. Elva knelt beside it. She looked at the fitting where the pipe met the well cap. She did not touch it. She looked at the small pool of water at the base of the pump. She looked at Wesley's fingertips again, nails a little flattened, faint pale banding across each. She looked at Nathan. She said, Mr. Vaughn, if you would take the pump apart with a wrench, so that I may see the lining of the pipe, I believe I will show you the reason your boy has been failing 4 months. Nathan Vaughn fetched the wrench. He took the pump apart at the top fitting. He pulled the first 2 feet of pipe up. The pipe was iron on the outside. The inside, the lining that the water ran through, was a soft, dark gray. Elva Craddock scratched a fingernail against it lightly. A smear of gray came off on her nail. She said, "Mr. Vaughn, that is lead pipe. That is the source. Wesley has been drinking lead-tainted water for 4 months. He has, on his lower gums, the fine blue line that men in lead mines get in the 2nd year and children get in the 1st month. He has the small, sluggish speech. He has the flat fingernails. He has the small, dry cough of the throat that is being irritated by lead salts. He is not dying of a mysterious wasting sickness. He is being poisoned by his own pump. The cure is not a doctor. The cure is a new pump." Nathan Vaughn sat down on the top porch step. He put his forehead in his hands. Elva Craddock waited. He said, after a moment, "Ma'am, I will drive the buckboard to town for the new pump this evening, if you will tell me what to buy." Elva said, "I will." He said, "And after, what must I do to bring him back?" Elva said, "Mr. Vaughn, from tomorrow morning we begin. Only water hauled from the creek in the good tin bucket. Fresh milk twice a day from Widow Pool down the road, who I know keeps her cows. Fresh eggs, as much butter as he will eat. Greens as the summer allows. Spinach as soon as the seed shipment comes in. A slice of buttered brown bread at every meal. He is to be outside in the sun each morning for 1 hour. That is the diet. I would ask, also, if you will allow me, to ride out every 2nd afternoon for 3 months to look at him. I will not charge you. I will charge you supper. That is my price." Nathan Vaughn raised his head from his hands and looked at her. He said, "Ma'am, I will feed you 3 suppers a day if it will bring my boy back." Elva said, "2 a week will do." She rode out every 2nd afternoon for the whole spring. Wesley began, in the first fortnight, to eat. He ate half a slice of buttered bread on the 4th day. He ate a whole slice on the 7th. He drank a full cup of Widow Pool's milk on the 9th. He ate a full plate of eggs on the 15th. The blue line on his gums faded by the 3rd week. The dry cough left by the 5th. He put on 2 pounds in April. He put on 3 in May. Elva sat with Nathan Vaughn at his plank table on every visit. They talked at the plank table over supper, first about Wesley, then about the ranch, then, as the weeks went on, about the plainer things of 2 ordinary honest lives. He told her about Rachel, about the 4 years of their marriage, about her death, about the 4 years since. She told him about Silas, about the 8 years of hers, about the typhoid that had taken him, about the 2 years since. He told her about the small stone bench by the aspens he had put up for Rachel and never gone back to. She told him about the small silver ring she kept in a plain wooden box that her father had given her when she had married Silas, and about how she had put it away in the box a year ago because she had come to see it as a piece of her past, not her present. He listened. She listened. By the 4th week of April, Wesley called her Miss Elva without prompting. By the 2nd week of May, he called her Miss Elva without looking to his father first for permission. By the last Wednesday of May, he called her Aunt Elva. Nathan looked across the plank table at that moment and did not say anything. Elva did not either. On the 2nd Wednesday of June, Nathan Vaughn rode into Cedar Bend at 10 in the morning and stopped at Aunt Luella's small white house on Maple Street and knocked at the door. Aunt Luella, 61, brisk, opened it. "Mr. Vaughn." "Ma'am, I would like to speak to Mrs. Craddock, in your parlor. In your hearing, if you would prefer. If you would sit with us." Aunt Luella said, "I would prefer to sit at the kitchen. Take the parlor. I will be within calling distance. I will not listen." "Well, I will not listen much." She fetched Elva from the herb garden behind the house. Elva came into the parlor with her apron on and her hands earth-smudged. She said, "Nathan." He said, "Elva." He said, "May I sit?" She said, "Please." He said, "Elva." Wesley is well. He has been well for 4 weeks. Doc Farrow rode out yesterday and confirmed it, and said in front of the boy, and I quote, "This boy is a healthy 5-year-old Vaughn, and whoever fixed him did work I could not do." I told him. He tipped his hat to you across town. Elva said, "Nathan, Doc Farrow is a kind man." Nathan said, "Elva, I did not come here at 10 in the morning to bring you a compliment from Doc Farrow. I came here to ask you a question. I have been trying to ask it for 3 weeks. I have been trying to ask it in a way that would not put you in an unfair position. I have not found a way, so I will ask it plainly." He put his hat on his knee. He said, "Elva, would you walk out with me? As a plain courtship, with a view to a plain proposal, if the walking out goes as I hope. I have loved you since the afternoon at my pump. I have known it since the 2nd week of April. I could not press you while my boy was still failing. He is not failing anymore. I am pressing you now." Elva Craddock, still in her herb garden apron, sat down opposite him. She said, "Nathan Vaughn." He said, "Yes." She said, "I would very much like to walk out with you. I have loved you since sometime in early May. I did not know I had begun to. I knew when Wesley called me Aunt Elva at supper, and I looked across the plank table at you and could not look away. That is my plainer answer than a lady is supposed to give at 10 in the morning." Aunt Luella, from the kitchen, said in a low voice through the doorway, "Elva Frances Craddock, my poor manners." Elva laughed. Nathan laughed. Aunt Luella said, "I am not sorry. Come to the kitchen and have coffee. I have made scones." The circuit preacher married Nathan Vaughn and Elva Craddock in the parlor of Aunt Luella's small white house on the last Sunday of September. Wesley, 5.5 years old and putting on healthy weight, stood witness for his father in a small blue coat he had grown into. Doc Farrow, 62, stood witness for Elva. With tears in his eyes, he did not attempt to hide, because he had said the week before, waited 8 years to give a bride to a nurse who had seen a thing he had not. Afterward, on the porch step of the Vaughn Ranch that evening, with the September light going low on the pasture and Wesley chasing a small barn cat across the yard, Nathan sat with Elva on the top porch step and put his rough hand along the back of hers. He said, "Elva." She said, "Nathan." He said, "I have been thinking about the afternoon at the mercantile." She said, "Yes." He said, "If you had walked out onto the porch and not spoken to me, or if I had been buying flour at 11 that morning and not 3, and had missed you, or if I had said no to your coming to the ranch." Elva said, "Nathan." He said, "Yes." She said, "Do not add up the ways it could have gone otherwise. It is a very long list. I have added it up too. The list has one answer at the bottom, which is that I would have kept teaching my aunt to make Springfield biscuits, and you would have buried your son, and Wesley would be in the small cemetery beside Rachel by now. That is what would have gone otherwise. Please do not carry the arithmetic further. Please carry, instead, that I did walk out onto the porch and I did speak to you, and Wesley is running across your yard behind us, and I am your wife, and Doc Farrow ate 3 of Aunt Luella's scones this afternoon. Please carry the arithmetic that has actually happened." Nathan Vaughn pressed her cold knuckles against his cheek and did not, for a long moment, do anything but breathe. Wesley caught the barn cat. He held her up to show his parents. Nathan waved. 2 years on a warm September afternoon at the Vaughn Ranch, Elva Craddock Vaughn sat on the porch step with Nathan Vaughn beside her and a small daughter, Rose, 10 months old, asleep against her chest. Wesley, 7.5 now, was reading to Aunt Luella on the porch bench. Wesley had put on healthy weight and had grown 3 inches over the previous summer and could out-eat any child at the Cedar Bend school. Doc Farrow, on his last visit in May, had shaken his head once at Wesley and said, "Vaughn, that boy is a walking argument." Nathan said, "Elva." Elva said, "Nathan." He said, "There is a new family come to town this week." Elva said, "The Bowyers." Nathan said, "Yes. The Bowyer child is not well. Their pump is on the old south run of pipe that the 67 line laid down. It is a lead pump." Elva said, "Nathan." He said, "I told Mrs. Bowyer this morning at the mercantile. I told her plainly. I said, 'Ma'am, My wife knows about this. Please permit her to come see your boy tomorrow. Mrs. Bowyer said yes, and is expecting you at 11. Elva said, Nathan. He said, I am doing the arithmetic that has actually happened, Elva. I am doing it now for another family. Elva put her cheek against her husband's shoulder. She said, Good, I will go at 11. The pasture went to gold under the September sun. Somewhere behind the barn, Wesley started to argue with Aunt Luella about the pronunciation of a word in the McGuffey Fourth Reader. Aunt Luella began patiently to explain. And Elva Craddock Vaughn, who had turned her head at the sound of one small, dry, unproductive cough on a Thursday afternoon in March, and had said to Mrs. Waite at the yard goods counter, Who is that gentleman and his boy? Put her hand into her husband's, and understood that the good, slow country had, in its good, slow way, put an 11-year Missouri nurse at the Cedar Bend Mercantile at exactly 3:15 on a Thursday afternoon, and had, through that plain, honest arithmetic, made a whole family out of an old lead pump. And so it had.